So welcome back, guys. After 10-year hiatus of not making any videos, I'm back, the channel's back. It's no longer Wilderness Education, it's a bit pretentious. The channel's called Scottish Homestead. More on the channel change and what we're going to be doing and the videos that we've got coming out. But let's just jump straight back in with a reloading video, which is what kicked off the channel 12 years ago. So this video is about reloading 3.5-inch shotgun shells on a Lee load-all press. There's been a lot of talk, particularly in the UK shooting media, about a move away from lead shot to non-toxic alternatives for live quarry shooting. It's going to be happening over the next 5 years, apparently. Not here to argue the pros and cons that's been done to death, but if you're wanting a steel cartridge that kills well at distance, then there are some good factory loaded options out there, but they are loaded in the UK to CIP specs. They're limited to 1450 feet per second, and there are steel loadings out there which exceed 1450 feet per second and are still safe pressure wise, but you have to load them yourself to American SAMI specs. I recommend that everybody, if you're interested, get a copy of this manual here. Status of Steel is by Ballistic Products. There are other manuals out there, Lyman, and I think RSI do one as well, but that's the one that I've got, and we'll be using a recipe from that manual, and we'll be reloading 3.5-inch 39 grams, which equates to 1 3/8 ounce of BB steel, and we'll be doing it on a Lee load-all press. The Lee load-all press is a press that's designed to reload 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. If you want to load 3.5-inch shells, it can be done. You can get 3.5-inch shells in there, but you cannot use the powder dispenser, or in the case of BBs, the shot dispenser, and you have to manually weigh both your powder and shot. But I don't shoot a lot of 3.5-inch shells, so it's worth it. The difficulty with reloading 3.5-inch shotgun shells is when you come to resize and deprime, because the shell is longer. The decapping rod here on the press isn't long enough to actually punch out the primer, and the Lee load-all 2 utilises a resizing ring, and because of the length of the case, the resizing ring isn't pushed down over the head of the case far enough to fully resize it. But we can get around that by using adding a spacer here. It's just a bit of aluminium tube that I've cut to about 8mm, and that just adds enough on the resizing ring here to allow the complete resizing stroke, which is half of the battle of reloading 3.5-inch shells, is resizing them. And then to punch out the primer, we can start that process just a little bit with the existing decapping rod, and we can just finish it off with a screwdriver. So it's no big deal, and it's pretty easy to do. So let me show you how it's done. Okay, I've got a 3.5-inch Chidite shell here, once fired, and I am just going to start this process by putting it into the depriming resizing station and just starting off the primer there, just punching it out, just unseating it slightly. Turn your sizing ring upside down, place the case on the resizing ring, get your screwdriver in there, locate it onto the primer, and punch out the primer, and that's the case deprimed. No big deal, not really that onerous, easy enough to do. Take the sizing ring, put it over the case, take the extension ring, put that over the case, put it into the resizing station, and you can see there that the resizing ring has gone right down over the head of the case. Take off the extension ring, and we're going to reprime the case, and I've got a Chidite CX2009 primer. Put that into the priming station. You can fit the 3.5 inch case on there, no bother, and we can prime the case. So that's the case primed. Okay, so we've got our decapped, resized and reprimed case there. Now we need to measure out our powder, and we're just going to do this manually. This is Alliant steel powder, and we need, for this recipe, 46 grains of Alliant steel. Now, Alliant steel is a really bulky powder, really, it's described as being fluffy. It takes up a lot of volume in the case, and it doesn't meter particularly well. So you can meter it through an automatic powder measure, or you can do it manually like this. So I've got my 46 grains of powder, and I'm going to tip that into the case. It's in there. I've got my steel shot wad here. It's a B&P S44 wad, so it takes up to 44 grams of steel shot, but for this we're just going to use 39 grams of steel shot for this load. In order to do that, we need to adjust the wad column height, and we do this with a 20 gauge cork spacer, which we press into the bottom of the wad, like so. Okay, you probably can't see that, but it's in there. Okay, now BBs don't meter through the shot dispenser, so we need to measure these out. Now, if you had a shot dipper, you could do it with a shot dipper. The thing about steel shot is, or reloading steel shot, is that it's very, very easy to increase your pressure by going over on powder or going over on the weight of shot. And again, it's no big deal just to measure out the shot weight. Again, I don't shoot a lot of 3.5 inch, so it's no big deal. It's a lot like reloading metallic rifle ammunition. Do a batch of 50, it's no big deal. Okay, so I've got 39 grams of steel shot, equates to 1 3/8 ounces of copper plated BBs. can see the BBs in the case there. Then the recipe calls for buffer, original buffer, about 12 grains of original buffer, and with a 1.6 cc scoop, wee scoop, like that, added into the top. That works out at about 12 grains, and we'll just tap that until it's settled in the case. And then to top everything off and to hold the buffer in, I've got a 12 gauge card, overshot card, and we just press that in. So we've got the overshot card pressed into the top of the case. You don't need to do this, it's recommended, and it helps hold the buffer in and also give you a nice crimp. And then we can just, as normal, put this onto the 6-star crimping station, and we can set our 6-star crimp, and then we can finish the crimp off in the finishing station. Okay. Now, the thing about Lee load-all presses is that they do make a good finish, but what really makes the difference is if we use this tool here, which is a crimp finisher tool, and that just finishes this off and rounds the edges of the mouth of the end of the case off, and just finishes it off nicely. So after you have run it through the end crimp station, because this is quite the wad column height, or the column height of this shell is quite tall. If you over crimp it on the Lee load-all, what happens is you crush the case, and to resolve this crimp that's starting to spring back open here, what we do is we run it through the crimp finisher tool, which puts a rounded finish on the crimp and seals it up and makes it look really professional. And this is an Apilladrill, this is a gape finisher tool, and we just run this shell through that, and that will finish it off. Nice rounded end. We'll feed in any semi-automatic. There's no dimpling on the case. So 1 3/8 of BB steel travelling at about 1600 feet per second in this loading. So there you have it. That's a quick run through of how to reload 3.5 inch steel on a Lee load-all 2 reloading press, with the option of using the crimp finishing tool in the Apilladrill just to finish up the crimp and to make it look nice and professional.